Hey fan peeps, this is your podcast host Kunal here. I started this during the pandemic, and in this podcast I discuss my nerdy thoughts and hobbies with you, with the occasional special guest. From anime to Zeppelins, we talk about it all. You're NASM certified, you got the guns.
I got the guns. Still doing classes on that. I was just studying this morning right before our call.
Oh, for real?
Yeah. I have to keep my nutrition things updated, so I'm going through their new updated curriculum for that.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So do you have to get registered like every year?
We have to keep our CEUs up every 2 years, and then
Okay.
they now suggest for the nutrition stuff because everything's always updated, new foods and new habits and
as
things.
it kind of should be, honestly.
I think they say every 2 or 4 years for that one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, Anna, this is my good friend Anna Confer. She is fucking certified badass. She just breaks hearts. She's a heartbreak.
Breaks
kid.
hearts. Yep, never broken a bone for me.
You know,
Anyway.
dude, same. I've just got like one sprain. That was like it, and then I like rehabbed the shit out of it because I was like, no, I'm gonna keep the record solid.
That's right.
I met you like out in. I think the first time I noticed you was the Intersects seminar. I think like 2015 or something like that. And you're unmistakable because not only are you like a non-white person in the crowd of like a full of white people.
Although I am very pale.
It's okay.
I am very pale.
I mean, you know what's funny? Did I ever tell you this? My family always jokes and calls me white all the time because I'm like the palest Indian guy in there.
And they're like, "You're white passing."
I'm like, I'm not white passing. I look like, I mean, half the time in St. Louis, I get asked if I'm Mexican or Chinese, and that is not a joke. I'm dead.
Chinese?
I get Chinese.
Oh,
I don't know. I'm like,
I don't know.
I loved fried rice, but I don't know if I love it that much. So. Every year you would come to any of these seminars, either would be in Asano in St. Louis or it'd be like the ones in Oklahoma or et cetera, you always have a new hairdo and it's a new color. Eventually, like, we would like see each other, I think, at these seminars of every once in a while. And I finally like reached out, I think during the pandemic or something like that. It's like when I first started sending you like, hey, what's up? I think I friended you and I was like, what's up? How you holding up? Because you had also drawn a bunch of beautiful like anime stuff and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. I used to be an artist.
You can't see her, but she's bashful as hell right now. She's like, oh shucks.
I used to be an artist. I haven't touched it in a while. Martial arts has really taken over my life, but I promised myself I'd get back to it.
Here you go. Yeah, the Tanjiro you did was beautiful. Did you end up selling in them or just like keeping them and showing them off or?
Just a couple of them, and then, I mean, I did a lot of painting in high school, and then I did art classes in college, and just kind of, like, branched off from there, but I didn't do it for selling, I did it for enjoyment, and then when you start commissioning stuff, you're just like, I'm getting really stressed out.
Yeah.
I used to like doing this, and now I don't, so.
I have a couple friends or contacts that I know who are artists for, like, I've used them for podcasts and everything, and they're always like, I absolutely love drawing and painting and everything, but then just like it's the ultimate stress of like, fuck, I got to do what they want, I got to get done, and then when I do it, they love it, and they're like, okay, I need you to do 5 more, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, it's hard, and people have asked me to do some stuff digitally, and I've never grew up doing that stuff, and I know the new generation's like all about it, but for me, I'm like so stressed. I don't know how this works.
Yeah.
I hate YouTube learning because it's really slow, and I'm like a fast-paced person.
Same.
And, yeah, but I have the rest of my life to figure it out. So
exactly, like that's a beautiful way of looking at it too. I like that. We often think that like if you do something, you have to become a master at it straight away. Yeah. But literally, you have the rest of your life. We have life expectancy of like what 80 at this point, and living well and making the right choices. You have plenty of time to get good.
Yeah, plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because my next point was like I'm super jealous of you because you're a year younger than me and you're like a full ranked teacher in the Inasano world. And
I'm not a full instructor. I'm just in the ranks.
You're in the ranks.
It takes like 15 or 20 years to be a complete full instructor under an Asano.
That's true. Like they give you on like experience rather than.
Yeah, because you're like an apprentice to associate to instructor
that's
to
still
senior.
Like way further than a lot of people our age. That's the thing. Like that's kind of nuts, honestly.
Yeah, every time he asks who's the youngest, and I raise my hand. It's usually me. I beat somebody by a year. when I was at the last seminar I was at. Yeah.
Yeah, you're definitely the youngest at the instructor camps and stuff too. Like by a long shot.
Yeah. And you have to be good because you're the youngest, you know.
Yeah, that's a damn good point. I hadn't thought about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not going to look like a fool. I practice a lot.
No, and that's a good thing. That's awesome. So that brings me to my next point. Like, what brought you into martial arts? Like, can you give me some of your background?
Yeah, so my mom was born in Korea, and she was on the poorer side with her family. And so, she wanted to do a bunch of stuff, and then she had me. And so through me, I did a bunch of stuff that she wanted to do. But I liked doing it. So she put me in piano classes. She put me in taekwondo classes.
Hold up, like that is the most Asian kid thing I've ever heard because I had to do the same thing.
Yeah. Instruments.
Oh yeah, you have to play the piano. You have to because my parents were like, we didn't have this opportunity. You got to be able to play an instrument. And I'm like, okay, I like the piano. Yeah. And then I'm like, I don't know if I like it as much as you guys.
Yeah, my mom really liked the piano, but I struggled when I was younger. All kids struggle doing something,
yes.
In classes. Like, oh, I don't want to practice. I want to play. But I was an only child, so I didn't have anyone to play with. So I was like, yeah, let me practice the piano. And then my mom put me in taekwondo class, but she did it with me because I was 3 years old.
Okay.
And I was too young. I couldn't start piano until I was 5 because my hands were too small.
Oh, that's adorable. I'm sorry.
I was 2 months premature. And I'm learning a lot of stuff about premature babies right now because I have a quote-unquote niece who was born premature.
Oh, gotcha. She
has gas problems. She's very tiny,
Gotcha.
And I was like, I have gas problems and I'm tiny. I'm the same. I grew up to be the same as this freaking baby right here.
Oh, no. I mean, I think you're pretty average size for...
an Asian woman?
Like, people of our genetic backgrounds. I was going to... Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. But I notice a lot more people are really tall, and teenagers are very, very tall.
Yes.
I do not remember people in my high school being as tall as the people I'm seeing now.
I guess they're all hopped up in social media and stuff. I don't know. I guess that helps in some capacity or not, but...
Yeah. Looking at the screen grows you taller.
Exactly. It brings your head forward, but it brings your head forward, but your back up. So that's the thing.
I'm supposed to be trained to train people to not do that, but yes.
You're like my height. You're like, what, 5'6"?
5'5".
5'5". Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
You're not that tiny. And, Indians and Koreans are like cousins.
We're connected to the ground. We can kimchi squat very easy.
We can kimchi squat. We can like chai squat over here. Like we got amazing center of gravities. It's funny because my dad's like 3 inches taller than me, and he always jokes that my mom and I are like very nice and compact. He's like, you can stretch really well because you're compact. And I was like, fuck you, old man. I'm like 3 inches shorter than you. Well, that was a huge segue. Anyhow, so did your mom already take Taekwondo when she was a kid, or she just picked it up at the same time?
She did not. We picked it up at the same time.
Okay,
I was 3 and I needed help. And nowadays for martial arts, kids' classes, for the most part, are separated by ages. But back then, it was a lot more traditional. Everyone's thrown in. So my mom helped me out. And then we just did it together, and we're still training together until now.
Cool. And then did you delve into other art forms? Like, how did you get to the Inasano world is my question.
Okay, so when I was younger, it was strictly Taekwondo. And then me and my mom, we tested at the same time, and we did it for years. We had a couple falling outs, so we switched to a different Taekwondo school.
That is like every martial artist's like chapter story.
Falling out.
My God,
yep.
There's so much of that happening.
I know. But because Taekwondo is popular, we were able to find a different Taekwondo school, different organization. And through this second school we went to, there was a guy who was starting up a Muay Thai program.
Mm-hmm.
So he had never taught Muay Thai before, I believe, or maybe he did. And so he experimented on some of us fresh high schoolers. And through that, I did Taekwondo and Muay Thai.
Gotcha.
And then, like, as the years go by, I just kind of delved in. He separated to do another school. And he had a jiu-jitsu instructor, so I started jiu-jitsu there. And then...
So you're a teenager when you start that?
Jiu-jitsu was actually college time frame.
College time frame? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You're in 20s then?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Through high school, we did Muay Thai and Taekwondo. And then I went to college, so I had to drive back and forth. And then I needed to take a break because college took over. I did, try to finish in 4 years, doing 2 majors and a minor.
What were your majors and minor? Tell me about that.
Women's studies.
Hell yeah.
Dual major sociology with a criminology emphasis, and then a queer studies minor.
Fuck. Okay.
It was a lot of reading.
I was going to say, that's like a lot of reading. I was a history kid, and that's a lot of reading.
Yeah, history's, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I never slept.
My God, man.
I had a really good time doing the Taekwondo club at college with my friends, and then once I started transitioning out of college, I came back to my hometown, and I taught at the gym.
Okay.
And so I'm an adult. I delved into jiu-jitsu. I helped teach the kids class.
I want you to know that, like, she says she's an adult when she's surrounded by, like, Pokemon plushies. She's saying this.
I'm a millennial.
I mean,
what do you want from me?
I'm also holding my Charmander, so it's okay. Because he's my son. He's a very good kid.
And I have this family of babies here all sleeping.
You have, like, you have 10, right? I think 10 besides?
Yeah, totally.
So I had to stop you in the middle of that because you can't just say that when I'm looking at like 10 plushies behind you. Anyhow, continue.
And then the Inasano instructor, he moved here through military and then talked to us about either starting a program or coming in and having a student. And so I volunteered because I love learning everything. Mm-hmm. And so we partnered up. We didn't do classes. Unfortunately, it took from my jiu-jitsu time because that's the only time we had to meet.
Right.
And so we trained. And then a couple years in, he invited me to come into seminars. And then through that, I guess he saw my potential and put me into the instructor's program.
Hell yeah, man.
And then through that, we branched out, falling outs happened, and then we opened up a school, and we focused more on, like, the Inasano type stuff.
So you're a shonen protagonist, is what you're trying to say.
I suppose so, and I just don't know what's going to happen in the future, so...
As long as you have the power of God, anime, and friendship, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Couple questions. That was a really good synopsis. Thank you. Number one, and this kind of goes back a little earlier when you were giving the whole synopsis. Everywhere you look, basically, since probably the 70s or 80s, anywhere you go, you will find Taekwondo or karate schools, no matter what. Mm-hmm. Is that mainly from, like, just leftovers of World War II? Like, how did it get so mainstream?
So, like, real talk, I'm really bad at history.
That's okay.
I can't remember dates. I can't remember names.
I'm not asking for dates.
No, for sure.
Just like,
sure.
Because I wasn't even good at dates as a history major, which is very common. Like, you'd be surprised. When you're a history major, you look at things more of, like, succession as opposed to, like, time.
Yeah.
So, anyhow.
I do believe Bruce Lee was a big factor in bringing, like, Asian arts to the United States.
Definitely.
Because for Asian people coming up, we were always the model minority. And we were quite into the history books because there was, the Civil Wars and segregation when it comes, it's very black and white.
Yeah.
And so through my queer studies minor, I took a class that talked about Asians in the Midwest, and, Asian people were often ignored. Hate crimes against us was not very put out. And so, I mean, COVID was a good part of seeing some of the violence.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But Bruce Lee, in a positive note, was coming in as a movie actor and try to get into being a global sensation in his own way. And, just people seeing something new, that probably is a very big factor in bringing in. And all these other very big institutions like the Thai Boxing Association and definitely Guru Inasano and other bigger names. And even, the white folk, you got Chuck Norris and, people need to see themselves doing something, right? And Chuck Norris is very big on martial arts. And so if he can do it, right, then people in the United States would be like, oh, I can do this stuff.
I heard about him too. Like, he went, like, in the 50s and 60s and, like, beat a lot of the champions in Korea and Japan. Like, he's actually, like, Walker, Texas Ranger is hilarious. And a lot of his movies. But, like, in terms of his fighting ability, I've heard he's, like, actually legitimately really good.
And he's trained with Bruce Lee.
Right.
He's done things with him. And so, I mean, in a sociological perspective, like, things melded together, people see it, and then it starts getting popular because popular people were doing it, celebrities and stuff.
Right.
And even if they weren't a celebrity at the time, right, yeah. And then being exposed to it, people want to do it, right? And then anime came in, I suppose, at some point, or just watching TV shows, hero TV shows. You got Batman doing kicks or something, and people were like, I want to try this out. So I think in a pop culture point of view, that is probably some of the factors of how it got big.
Okay.
And then karate and taekwondo was probably a little easier. And when it comes to military people going to Korea or, anywhere else, they bring something back with them from where they've learned.
They don't realize like how much downtime you have as a soldier sometimes. So it leaves you
because they bring back Korean wives and then here it is, Taekwondo.
that as well. That is 100% true.
Historically inaccurate, but soldiers like bringing their Asian wives. I've noticed that a lot.
I mean, you can speak from experience, so I totally understand that. Your dad was a soldier, so
yes, and he met my mom, who's Korean. He's white, and I have arrived.
I just imagined you like walking down like somewhere and just like waving at people as you say "I'm arrived" or something.
In college parties, yes, I did.
This reminds me of like the Key and Peele sketch of like they're talking to the audience and he's like, "It is way too hard to be," and I think you could use this for almost any minority. It's like, it is way too hard to be the only POC at every like college party, because typically they're like white dominated. It's like everyone looks to you to be their entertainment. It's like I had to walk. He's like, I had to walk around the bar to get a drink, because if I go near the people there, they just start going, "Hey Jordan, hey Jordan," and like he's like, I showed up to a party and everyone was just sitting down on the couch. No one was doing anything else.
Oh my God.
It was really weird. And when he said that, I was like, there have been certain instances. Now, granted, I've distanced myself from those people because it was very bad. But it was hilarious to see how accurate that was in the full place. So, anyhow, I never forget that. That joke always stays with me. And it's not even when they're sketches. It's just like when they're talking to the audience. Yeah, that totally lost my train of thought after that.
Well, yeah, no problem. Anyways, the Taekwondo karate scene got big, and people want to know the mystery, I suppose. Like, not speaking as a martial artist, but speaking as an outsider, looking at, this is martial arts. Right. And then, people learn, get popular, stop at yellow belt, stop at red belt, get their black belt, stop, or just continue. And then it went, to the Olympics, got sported, got popular, definitely changed the arts. And I think that's what's happening with jiu-jitsu as well. And now we're just waiting to see what the next thing is. Yeah. To hop in.
I've talked about that on the side, because like that definitely is happening. I've been trying to bone up on, since I've started taking BJJ classes, well, I've been told that I'm a cerebral guy. I'm a fucking nerd. Holding a Charmander plushie for the hell. And so like I like to research as much as I can on how things are gotten. And they've made that, I want to say complaint, maybe I'll say point, about BJJ becoming far more on the point side. Like they'll show you certain sweeps or certain moves that get you a certain amount of points. In fact, I think even the classes I'm taking right now, the guy's like, if you get him in this guard, you get like way more points. And I'm like, I don't care about that. Like, but then again, I've heard like after you do it for a while, you typically want to compete, like just for the first one. I have a buddy that he's under 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu out in...
Oh, there's a 10th Planet over there?
So there's one here, and there's like a sister school out in Illinois about like 40 minutes away.
Wow, I gotta stop by.
Yeah, it's so I talked to the dude. Do you know that Eddie Bravo started as a JKD guy?
I did not know that about Eddie Bravo,
yeah,
actually.
He started as a JKD guy.
I have one of his books, and 10 Planet stuff is like, definitely for not self-defense, but...
Shots fired.
I enjoy doing it, and I didn't know I did until my friend exposed me to it, and I was like, oh, this is good shit.
Yeah, like, I talked to the guy who ran, and I'm not trying to do a hate train on Eddie Bravo. He's won a bunch of stuff. He's a damn good martial artist, but I can't speak to it. You have a lot more experience than I do in that, so I will defer to you. But when I went to the gym, everyone was pretty, like, it was a really nice facility. People were really inviting. I had talked to one of the guys. He's like, yeah, I politically don't agree with a lot of Eddie Bravo stuff, but I appreciate some of the stuff he's doing. So I was like, all right, cool. I'll just paraphrase and say that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's just a lot. That's a lot of people. Yes, I do not politically agree. However, they produce some good stuff. I could say that for a lot of things.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you have to say that in martial arts. Like we, in the spirit of not getting you or I into trouble, like that's definitely something that happens a lot in martial arts because people don't realize a lot of them are ex-military, ex-police, like typically people that were, and also people that were really bullied, and this is their outlet of trying to reclaim some certain things. Now, for you and I, it was more just like, this is really cool. We're small East and South Asians. I'm on the South side, and this is one way that people will fuck with us less. That's right. That's right. Yeah, throw up the fake gang signs that we don't know. But it's also like, dominated by a lot of very misogynistic people, misogynistic men in particular. And it's incredibly hard you have to pick your battles. You really do, because you're outnumbered in a lot of ways. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that getting emotional, just even talking about it, I think that's how you and I became like decent friends pretty quickly. I'd like to think that. So yeah.
I mean, I'm going to like track back on my synopsis very quickly.
Sure.
But now we're talking about inequalities.
Please do.
My first instructor I really respected, and I was 3 years old, and I was a very little kid, and I was with him, and I was still in elementary school. And, Asian people, in my experience, are really big on loyalty, right? Whether it's within our families or,
Friends,
who we pick to really indulge in, because a lot of things are superficial unless you really pick that person. And my mom was betrayed by our first instructor just about driving us to a tournament because she couldn't drive long distances, but he chose to pick these newer people to drive and take to a tournament instead of me and my mother, who's been with him for many years. So that was the first falling out.
Sure.
And then the second falling out came in, and now he was Japanese, and my mom's Korean, and my mom's older.
God.
He was a little younger than she was.
Yeah, there's like a huge...
Yeah,
long story short, there's just like Japan has a lot, like they are still recovering from it. From what they, like the
old school Koreans too, yeah. And my mom's not really too much on that, right? She came to America, and she, did the thing.
Sure.
But now we go to our second place I stayed in for quite a few years, and my mom's English is decent.
Sure.
Not terrible. But a lot of people ignore her because of that issue of like a quote unquote language barrier, when there's not too much of a language barrier that really needs to be there, that people assume is there. And I never realized this until I was more in the college aspect, studying my women's studies, queer studies, and to really dissecting what happened.
Sure.
And so my mom was kind of ignored. We were both 4th degree instructors. We are now both 5th degree in Taekwondo. But being an instructor...
First off, great job.
Thanks.
That's impressive as hell.
Yeah, still going. But yeah, my mom was ignored when it comes to like instructor meetings or saying, hey, this is what's going on. And a different instructor who was a lower degree than us was getting more attention instead of my mother. So it was just like this weird dynamic. And so my mom felt very disrespected, and we had to leave there.
Sure.
But because I was under 18, my mom kind of chose my path on where we went. But after the fact, too, is there was homophobia with my instructor. And so...
It's so ingrained, too. It's so, like, just, like, everywhere. Oh, my God.
It is. Especially, like, in the 2000s. Yeah, in the 2010s. Because I tried to come out to my mom. It went really bad. It's good now. But anyways...
I'm happy to hear that, yeah.
Yeah. So... She went to my instructor because we're ingrained in the martial arts school. And this is what I don't understand a lot. People say, like, the gym is their safe haven. And I understand it could be. But for me, I was always jumping around. And I always had to put a shell up because something was always off. And so when I came up to my mom, she brought it to my instructor. And he tried to talk us down because we were having very bad tensions, my mother and I. And the instructor was like, if my son was gay, I just don't know what I would do. And that turned me off, like, hardcore. But I was here for training. I'm not here to make personal relationships if that's something you're going to say. So I continued on for years. And then I went to this other instructor in my college days. We did, the Muay Thai and the Jiu-Jitsu. And the problem here is that he was not homophobic. He was very supportive. But he was a womanizer, and I was brought into a lot of situations with the clients that we had, parents and other women, and I was a feminist. I became a feminist in college, really understood what it is, saw, the microaggressions between a lot of different dynamics, And I stayed in that position for a long time. And like I said, I was there for training and there was nowhere else to go. There's not a lot of opportunities in the Midwest, and I'm in this very small town.
Yeah. Like, people don't realize, like, if you don't have an instructor nearby you, like, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah. And these days, you can't just drive somewhere, sleep in your car, drive back, and train who you want to train. You have to spend the money.
Yeah. It's an expensive hobby.
It is. It's truly.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of money through my high school years doing Taekwondo in a big organization. But there was a lot of inequalities going on in this gym I was working at, and the pay inequalities, just how people treated women. But everyone seemed friendly and everyone seemed brainwashed. And it was really hard for me. And then after that, I broke off, got to the new gym, and, the cycle always happens depending on who you're working with. And it could matter and it couldn't matter if it's a racial issue, but there's always going to be a sexist issue. There's going to be an age issue. There's going to be, something that's always there. So you have to find the positives where you can.
It's very socially stratified. And, like, I totally, like, as you're saying this, I'm just remembering, like, situations where I had to, someone says something about, like, denying climate change. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just going to, like, pretend we didn't talk about that and move on. And they'll say, like, oh, yeah, like, the protests are happening are idiotic. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm like, do you see what kind of human you're talking to?
Yeah. And
Like-
it's hard too because they don't even have to talk to you. Social media is very huge.
Yeah.
And I have seen a lot of people saying things about trans rights these days.
Oh, God.
And how trans people are not people, and very sarcastic, very terrible memes about trans people.
You could just say I'm a woman now and everything. I'm like, that's a huge oversimplification of what's happening.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
they don't understand these issues.
Yeah.
And they have not brought it up to me, but they're on my feeds, right? Because
Right.
I'm a friendly person to add someone that I'm connected through into a gym.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just like total disrespect. I might not be trans. Maybe I will be one day. I don't know. But I'm a queer person.
Right.
And if you're hating on one queer person, how am I going to expect you to not hate on me? You can like me as a person, but if you don't agree with my lifestyle just because it's not your lifestyle, there's going to be tension.
Yeah, it's like disagreeing with me is totally fine so long as it doesn't inflict upon my right as a human being.
Exactly. Human
Yeah.
rights, that's it. And
Yeah.
if you say something's not a human, then what can I expect you to say about me behind my back?
Right. It's like if you're this kind of reminds me of like next generation part is like if children can learn to dehumanize anyone, what's stopping them from dehumanizing their parents? Bit of a stretch, but it's just terms of like if you turn someone down who's a human being, like what's to stop you from doing it from other stuff? I don't want to talk about a slippery slope. That's not the same thing, but I hear you is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, and it's one thing, like, if I have an instructor who does not believe that trans people are people, they shouldn't have the certain rights, they're just a joke. Me as an LGBTQ person,
Right.
if I wanted to host, like, a self-defense thing for queer people, and I can't reflect that through who I'm working with or the gym, and I'm separated, but then someone gets mad at me because I did something like that because it doesn't agree with them,
Mhm.
because LGBTQ people are not people.
And a mentor is someone like you like whenever you have a martial arts instructor, especially when you're doing private sessions like we are, you want to be close with that person. Even if it's not necessarily personal, you're going to be close.
You're there every day with them, you
Right.
train with them, you teach with them.
Exactly.
It's a lot of your time,
It's a
yeah.
lot of your time, a lot of your like personal stuff will definitely bleed through. And you want them to be like someone who you are confident with or someone who's going to be like, really have your best interests at heart. It's like being in a bad marriage.
100%, yeah. Because sometimes you're spending more time with this person than the person you're married to,
Or yeah. It's very stressful. Getting uncomfortable just talking about it because I've had similar experiences where I had to just like watch what I said. I've had some good people. I've met some really amazing people, and you're definitely one of them. But
Same to you, yeah.
thank you, man. That really does mean a lot.
I mean, honestly, this is my first time talking to someone who's POC and queer who does martial arts.
Yeah, and on the Asian side too.
Right. And if you're out there, please hit me up.
Yeah, hit her up. Like we can literally throw your email in the notes if you want to. I'm more than happy to do that, or whatever contact information you want to put
Yeah.
up. Because I know that there are more. There has to be more. And I feel like a lot of them are just hiding. That's like kind of like, oh, why are there no trans people before? Like, oh, there totally were. They just were hiding.
Yeah, exactly. They were always there.
Like there's rumors coming out now. Like Quincy Jones did a really big interview with New York Times Magazine about, I think, during the pandemic, and he was talking about, because like he's been around. He wrote "Fly Me to the Moon." Like he's been around in music for a long ass time, and he mentions that he's like, yeah, it's kind of like when Richard Pryor and Marlon Brando were going out and stuff like that, and the interviewer's like, what? He's like, oh yeah, like Richard Pryor like slept with Marlon Brando a lot, and there's rumors that Richard Pryor did a bunch of that before. He's like, yeah, I was gay for a week. What's the big deal? Which is, I'm like, okay, that's a weird response. Like they were always around and we kind of just shoved that underneath the carpet, and he's like, do you want to talk anything more about that? He's like, I've already said too much. So they were always there, and there are like multiple genders and trans identified people that have gone back throughout history. Like it's in my culture they're known as the hijras. I'm sure they have something similar in Korean culture. They were never like, it's not just a brand new thing. It's something we've thrown to the side after colonization. So,
absolutely. Colonialism has ruined a lot of things.
Yes. And their food is still bland. God damn. And their food is still bland. Yeah. I'm glad, I'm glad I reached out last year.
About 2 years, right?
It seems like a lifetime.
Seems like a lifetime. For my self-exploration, everything's in a spectrum. And that's really hard for people to understand when they have grown up with only binaries and they don't want to break out of the binaries, right?
Yeah, binaries are comfortable, right? Spectrum requires a lot more thinking.
Right. And for me, as I get older, I'm like, maybe I am genderqueer. Sometimes I feel more masculine. Sometimes I feel more feminine. I'm fine with any pronouns, to be honest. And I've been called he many times. And that doesn't bother me at all. I'm like, yeah, call me Master Sir. Yeah, I love that shit. Sir only, please. Like when people call me ma'am, it does get me really uncomfortable.
It like throws you off too.
Yeah, military is a part of martial arts because that's how they train.
Yeah,
that's what they use, and so of course sir and ma'am are a thing. But for me, I really did always hate ma'am because there's always this sexist or a gender dynamic where men instructors are more important than female instructors.
It's bullshit.
And language is very important, especially when it comes to like certain arts, like you have Sifu, Simo, and as you continue, there's always a structure there when it comes to gendered language. Sometimes the male language is more important than the female language,
which doesn't make any sense to me. I was like, why can't there just be like a name that just says teacher instead of having it to be like a male teacher or a female teacher? It's like it doesn't have to be like that.
Yeah, well, history, man. That's a whole other conversation.
I mean, it is a whole other...
We could try to dissect that, but I'm not going to.
I don't know.
That's a lot of brain work.
It's a lazy Sunday. I don't know if we want to do that, man.
No, not at all. Not at all.
We can come back another time and do that, but there's very much a dichotomy.
Growing up, people change.
Yeah.
Things change.
You can learn. You can grow.
Yeah, and you can change genders, you can change your sexual orientation, and I think that's really hard when it comes to something as traditional as martial arts, because the generation that's before us still have a problem with non-binary terms,
right? If
a person's non-binary. And so I struggle with that only because I hate to see non-binary people or trans people or queer people struggle in the environment that they're in that's not welcoming, even though people say they're welcome. Like, everyone's welcome on the mat, but are you really? Because from the way people talk on social media about them and their communities, it's not comfortable.
And it's like, it's not so much that we want like the pride flag or genderqueer flag like waved everywhere we go. We're just like, don't want to be excluded for it. Like
and we don't want
it's really the end of it.
Really, and hate crimes. We don't want hateful language being thrown out about us.
Everyone thinks like, oh, you got to have a queer flag everywhere you go. Like, no, we're at the end of the day, we're people. Like, we just want to go there and train. Like, Kali is so much fun. Choking people out, like all the straight men you choked out. Like, it's a fun thing to do. It's a fun thing to do.
It's more fun when they're straight. Yeah. I'm just kidding, guys.
But not really.
Everyone's same when they're choked.
Everyone chokes the same, man. We all pass out.
Some people just last longer than others.
Oh my god. I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, I got really nothing to add. But I wanted to go back to one part that you're talking about in terms of martial arts and what's next. And I wanted to say, because you and I have talked about this a little bit.
Yeah.
And My theory is that it's a lot of, and I'm definitely biased, but my theory is it might be a lot of the Indian arts. I feel like they're coming slowly into the new fold on a lot of things, because we're starting to research them. We're starting to see the similarities between them and a lot of Indonesian and Kali arts, because essentially the way I look at it is like this. Now, this is just my own take. This is not a historical take, but because of the Silk routes, because of just geographical locations, China and India are like the Greece and Rome of a lot of a section of the globe. And because of that, a lot of dissemination and culture goes in there. I was looking this morning, because I'm a fucking foodie, looking at Burmese food. And it is, I know, right? It looks awesome. And it looks way too, there's a lot of fucking similarities between that and Indian food. And it's just really interesting to see. If you go to Nepal, you'll have people who look Chinese, but speak with like a North Indian dialect. It throws you the fuck off. So I think a lot of Indian martial arts are going to come to the forefront. What are your thoughts? I'm just curious.
I'm hoping, because with my experience right now, people still don't quite know what it is, like with the Kali Eskrima, the Filipino arts, the Indian arts. But, yoga is really big and gained a lot of popularity. And there's a lot of similar things between that and doing Kali and doing, Indian arts because of movement.
Especially in Silat. Like, and every time I do certain Silat poses, I've met yoga instructors and they're like, oh, yeah, that's this pose. And I'm like, okay.
Right. Now you're just doing it to kill someone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. I think I do agree with you there. And training, the weapon arts, they're still just the small factions and people don't quite understand. But also on the flip side, being an instructor, you want to know that who you're teaching is going to do things for the right reasons.
Right.
Trying to teach knife and stick work to people that aren't going to openly go out and kill someone.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I can say confidently, is like, you can pretty much go to any of these seminars, and you've been going to them much more than I have, but like, either I'm insane and I've forgotten this, but like, you can go to any of these seminars free, willy-nilly, and learn like death strikes right away.
It depends. So
it depends on the seminar, I will say that.
And who's instructing it, for sure.
Yes, for sure.
Some of it is definitely bullshit, but if you don't have any knowledge and you go in and then you think you're like a master now, you know, that's definitely not the way to go. Seminars are not, you're not going to master things at seminars. But I do believe, like, for example, in Asano seminars I've been to, he's very keen, he's very aware, he has like such massive brain power and really good, people reading and things like that. So if he sees that there's a more experienced group, then
he'll show more.
And if he doesn't trust people, he's not going to show someone how to really hurt, a stranger out there if it's your first seminar and you're just going to go to the parking lot and try it out,
Right. That is definitely a factor too. And I'm wondering, like, if years down the line, if it gets too big of a deal that they start making rules and laws about people learning about martial arts in the first place. I've always wondered about that in the back of my head. So,
well, with the gun laws, who knows? You know, like,
or lack thereof. Yeah.
If we're going to compare, I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of laws, Florida is getting crazy.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Especially for the LGBTQ group. And unfortunately, it's just, I guess, like a little, segue. Like, people are afraid to go to Pride in Florida because of safety. Mm-hmm. And as much as we can teach martial arts, trying to teach how to stop a massive shooting is not in our repertoire. I mean,
you can only do so much against a gun. Like, you have to be, like, within a couple feet to do anything.
Right. And even then, a gun versus an empty hand is still very, very dangerous. I think part of martial arts, if we're going to keep going about martial arts, is that you should learn everything so you know how to defend everything. Mm-hmm. And so with martial arts, you have your empty hand, you have a stick, you have a staff, you have grappling, elbows, knees. They're all different ranges, all different distances of a person. Right. And Francis Fong teaches a lot of Wing Chun concepts, and he's very forward-thinking. He has done everything, I think. He's a master of everything, I think, in my opinion. He's very good. He's a master of hair gel as well. So. Oh, as well, yes, for sure. I want to know his hair regime, to be honest. But, he teaches Wing Chun, and he knows the group he's teaching. He knows it's a lot of white men who've been ex-military or ex-police or are police. And he's taught police. And, he always goes back to examples of how do you move with a gun, you know? And with martial arts and being a queer person, at this point in my life, I was never big on guns, but with how big it's blown up, I even think myself I should be trained in how to use a gun in case anything happens.
Just as a...
Which is unfortunate, but...
As an unfortunate response, yeah.
But in military times, they've had to learn how to use swords and knives, so it all depends on the evolution of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have a good defense against it and whatnot. Francis was also... He did a movie, I think, back in the 80s or something like that, too. And I think that's what gained a lot of his popularity or something. I forgot what it was. It was like somebody's heroes, Rocky's heroes. I forgot. I have to look it up. Yeah, you kind of train everything so you, as cliche as it sounds, so you know what to do if you're in a fight, but never go look for the fight. That's how I always like to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Put that on a poster.
I'm sure you could buy it at Target. So
they're going to take all my gay money.
I just imagining this like dollar bills, and it's just like George Washington with like blue hair or something like
my rainbow money, my Monopoly money, take it.
Getting back to our earlier point of martial arts that are coming by, have you? I know I've sent you a couple things, but what has really stuck out to you about like the next evolution in martial arts? I know that sounds super cheesy, but
it's hard for me to think because these days I keep coming back to like guns as well and weapons, and there's a big group that's pro gun and there's a big group that is against using guns, and then there are laws against, you can't carry a sword around. Why would I carry a sword?
Unfortunately.
But some people have pocket knives,
Yes.
And then other people have mini, not batons or whatever, but they make all these new weapons that are pretty cool, like those pocket staffs or whatever. I don't know how durable they are hitting somebody with.
I always wonder about that too. I'm like, they looked really cool in the Instagram video, but I doubt that's going to work in real life. So yeah.
Right. So I think it really depends on what is being used in time, because I want to say Kali and the Indian arts and stuff are coming in because it's very healing too. It's not just about hurting and killing people. They have a lot of healing movements.
In Kalari specifically, they show you how to do like massages with your whole body. It's a very communal art in that way.
Yeah, but see, that's a communal art. I think it depends on the society.
It does. Someone definitely got a sociology degree. Hell yeah.
If you're in such an individual society, it's hard to do things. You want to train with people you like, and that's your small community. And gyms tend to make that, right? They all have their own culture and what they breed and who they attract with people. Some might not attract certain people, and some, will do. And that just depends. Like, honestly, martial arts is like cultish in its own way.
Oh my god, yeah.
Religion, just like, any other group.
Oh my god, yeah, exactly. And it's kind of creepy, even if you're like, especially if you're someone who's like, oh, I like these people. Then when you've always been an outsider like you and I, you see it and you're like, okay, this is a problem. Like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And weapons tends to bring in a certain type of people, right?
Oh, yeah.
Versus like Taekwondo and karate, that's a type. Jiu-jitsu, that's a type. Doing weapons. But hopefully, as the exposure keeps coming out on what Kali is, what Indian arts is, how it heals, then, it could be introduced in yoga or classes or something,
could do that.
Using a tool to do that. So I think it depends on how our generation takes the martial arts within like the next 50 years. And like,
definitely you are one of those people. That's for sure.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know how popular I'm going to get. We'll see. I'm very bad with social media. So I'm not getting any followers.
That's okay. You'll have... I'll be your one. I'll be your one follower.
I'll have you. Yeah.
That's right. We got each other's back. You bring some really good points of contextualizing what's going on. It's also really cool to see like a lot of ancient techniques that have come to the forefront too, like a lot of club usage, Pelwanis, and they go back and forth where it started in India or if it started in Iran or in Persia about using clubs for getting your arms stronger and your shoulders stronger. Like there's mace work.
And that's becoming popular in America. And, with rehab and how sports medicine is going up, that could really maybe bring it into the forefront.
Honestly, yeah. Like Onit.com started doing it on their team, like I think 2010-ish, which is kind of nuts. And I think Lonero actually worked on it in some capacity. I think he worked with some of their kickboxing stuff, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so I'm excited to see, like you're saying, it's coming in with the rehab side. So we might see a resurgence in the next 10 years, as I feel. Every time I see anything Filipino or anything Indonesian, I was like, that's something I grew up with, or that's something that I've seen in my culture. I was like, I've seen this or that there. And I can never put my finger on it. which is the most annoying. Which is the most.
Oh, that's so annoying.
It's incredibly annoying, but like every time I see it, it's just hilarious. It's just like I'm like, oh, I know this, and I'm like, I wish I had my mom next to me all the time whenever I would see it, because I'm like, okay, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?
Yeah.
Typically, I have to show it to her later, but I want to share this quick story. I was at one of the seminars, and Gurden was talking specifically about like he had an Indian stick teacher. Lathi stick, and so he's North Indian, and he was unfortunately killed by extremists and stuff like that. It was pretty big around, that movement was pretty big around the 80s, so I think that's when it happened. But out of nowhere, dude like busts out an Indian accent, and people start cracking up, and I am dying. I'm like trying to hold it in my laughter because I did not see it coming at all. Seminar ends, I go up to him, and he's like packing his bag. Dude's exhausted. Like he taught like this is the end of 2 days, 8 hours each day. You know them.
Yeah.
He's just exhausted, and people have been peppering him with questions. People have been asking him to redo things. So I come up to him, and he sees like this small old man just like sees me, and I'm like, "Hey, Guru," and he like looks up, and I was like, he's expecting me to ask him like a question or something, and he's like prepared. I was like, I just want to say, I love the Indian accent you did out there, man. And I just saw like the level of ear to ear smile, like he just exhales, and he just like sticks his hand out there, and I was like, have a safe trip.
Yeah, he really is human, you know. He can be funny.
Whoa, man.
He's not just a teacher; he's a human.
He's not just someone that touched girls with Bruce Lee. Like he actually like loves to joke around and shit. Like,
yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, man, thanks for coming on. Please come again. I would love to have you.
Yeah. If you get any feedback about this, about whatever you or I say, we can definitely delve into actual specific topics on racism, sexism, womanizing.
Yeah.
In the spheres that we've been in.
And just like what it's like to be in our side of, I don't want to say branch, but like maybe our section of martial arts, because there's like different versions like MMA, us, traditional, and like it's kind of like all over the place when it comes to that.
Definitely. Yeah. And being in a white male dominated sphere. Yeah.
Yeah. We love the whites.
I hope no one gets offended.
If they've stayed this far, they're not going to be offended. So they know.
I'm half white.
So you can say that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
So does that make me the bad guy?
Not at all.
Okay. Thanks, dog. No, but seriously, thanks for coming, and see you guys soon. Hey fan peeps, thanks for listening, and I'd love any feedback you have for me. Please follow the Facebook page, They Need a Hobby, and follow us everywhere, social media-wise, under the handle @TNAHpod. That goes for Twitter and Instagram, and one of these days, I'll be super popular. Oh god, I have muscles. Fuck yeah. Do you want to show off the guns?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
All the time.
Oh, yeah.
Still working on them.
Yeah, dog. Yeah.